Hello, how's it going? Can people hear me? How do I sound? Hopefully I'm sounding good. Hello. Thank you for joining us. We will be getting started soon. Can you hear me? Hey, good to see that chat is updating as I am saying hello. Because last time it was bugging out, or it was delayed. I don't know about bugging out, but yeah. I sound low-key tired? Dang it, how'd you know? It's been a long day. Or maybe I just sound tired in general. I always sound tired. Yeah. Hopefully everybody's summer's going good, or going well. I can't believe it's already August, and not only August, but it's like past mid-August. So, it is. It is zooming by fast. It is crazy how fast summer has gone by. Like 4 minutes. Don't you guys love my handwriting? I have a nice voice. Oh, thank you. It's the tired voice. Tired voice is doing it. University starting next week? Oh, sounds exciting. Are you looking forward to university? Or is anyone else starting university? I know, like, but also that sounds super early. Doesn't university just start in, like, September, like everybody else? I don't know. Or have they changed it since I was last at university? Have they re-approached when school starts? Mentally tired? True. Don't worry, you should have fun with university. It is time for I actually I don't know. Time for what? I don't know. Maybe like hard work and studying is what it's time for. I guess while we wait, I'll just draw a little chibi Ganon because I've been drawing a lot of Ganon. I don't know how this will turn out. I've been drawing him really realistically and gridded so far, so maybe this will look terrible in chibi form, because I don't, or somewhat chibi form. I don't usually draw in chibi form, so I don't know. Why did I pick an art style that I don't usually draw in? Who knows? You know what's crazy though is like, because I just finished character design camp, found out that Ganon has an eyebrow that connects to his hair, which I did not know that was his thing. I was like, wait, what? His eyebrows just connect right into his hair. You're in a great mood today. Awesome. Nice. Grateful. Yeah. I mean, you know, if you can get into university, you should be excited. I think it's the next stage in life. Something to look forward to. Secondary school in September. Oh, okay. Cool. We got all people from all ages. Good Omens fan. Oh my god. I've never watched that show. I know the fandom for it is pretty high. You the goat of animation. Oh, thank you. I don't know about being the goat, but thank you for the words of encouragement. Appreciate it. Let's see. I didn't know how like stylish they made Ganon for Tears of the Kingdom. He is like, he's got a bun, or a kind of like a bun at the top, and then afterwards he's got this like huge cloak on and everything, and then he's like just buffed out Ganon. I don't know what to do for his hands. He's an angry man. And then I didn't realize how decked out in gear he was. He's got like rings. He's got like chain necklaces all over the place and everything. This man is dripped out and everything. I feel like I'm doing a quick version of like an Nendoroid or something. Let's see, he actually was not wearing any socks when I did some research on like what he looks like. So he's just got these he's just got his feet are out. and he's got these like, I don't know, sashes or wraps on the feet. I don't know. It's a very janky stance that I've done for Ganon while we wait. Okay, it is 5:01, so I guess we'll be starting soon. Kind of want to just finish this really rough drawing of Ganon. Hello everybody joining in. 14%. Oh man. Are you going to look over this month's submission? I will. I have them saved up, so don't worry. Don't worry, I haven't played Tears of the Kingdom. I haven't even finished the first one yet, so don't worry, no spoilers. Or at least, please, anyone who's played it, no spoilers. Hi, Josh and Mods. Hello. Yes, Joanne is here, keeping you guys company in case I miss some chat stuff, because I am still terrible at keeping up with chat, so yeah. It's been 4 minutes for a bit. It has been 4 minutes for a bit, but you know, time just keeps on going, so it's fine. Okay, I guess we'll get started since we've been waiting, and it is 5:02 on my time, so yeah, we are going to get started. And yeah, well, hello everybody, welcome to our stream. My name is Josh. I am going to be the one leading the stream for today. Welcome to our stream. I hope you guys are looking forward to going over the 12 principles of animation. And yeah, before we get started, a little introduction for who we are. We are Wing Canvas. We are a YouTube channel, as you can see, but we are also an online school. So if you are ever interested in learning more about drawing, we have a great cast of teachers, I guess you could say, we all teach very different things. On my end, I teach more of like the drawing and painting and animation, and more on the advanced side of things. So if you're learning to kind of up your technical skills, I teach a lot of drawing foundations as well as painting fundamentals. So yeah, we are not just a YouTube channel, but we are an online school. And if you are curious about any kind of behind the scenes stuff or want to get any kind of bonuses, feel free to check out our Patreons, as it comes with a lot of perks and benefits, such as emotes and badges, and a lot of behind the scenes features in our videos, as well as some bonus footages on our paintings and behind the scenes of just how we design characters and backgrounds, and maybe other goodies as well. And if you like what we draw here, we usually post all of our finished drawings in our social media afterwards. So Discord, Instagram, and Facebook are the places to be if you want to see the final animation sequences in this case, or our final paintings or drawings. Social media is a good place to check those final pieces out. And without further ado, I guess it is time to get started. There's a Discord. Yes, there is Discord that you can join. It's a great community. Everyone's really nice there. And today is... Actually, that was a weird segue, but we are going to go into the art submissions for this month. For those who don't know, we do an art challenge every month, and for the month of August, we are going to be doing fantasy. So it's pretty open, and there have been a lot of submissions. So I quickly scrolled through a good amount of them, and hopefully I picked some good ones. I mean, the ones I picked out, they all turned out great. So thank you for your submissions. Thank you for participating in the challenge. Am I using Krita? I am using Krita. So hopefully it works and doesn't crash on me. But Krita's pretty good. I like Krita. Okay, so our submissions. We are going to start off with... Wait, that's not... This is it. Okay, so this is by Squeeze Squiggle Doo. Great name. And I love the drawing over here. I think this is like an awesome depiction of a character. I really love the designs. The line work is great. Artist after my own heart, you know, line work focus. So yeah, I love the line work here. Love the textures and the cross hatching that's happening for some of the shading and the shadows and things like that. Yeah, overall great piece. Folds are looking awesome on the pants, and just overall really love the character design. Maybe I might space things out a little bit because it's a bit cramped, but in terms of like the individual design, it's awesome. I don't know if you're here in the stream, but great work. And then let's see, next one is by someone named Penguin. But again, awesome design. I really love the outfit. I really love just like the color palette and design of the person over that Penguin did here. And again, you guys can also check out these submissions in the Discord as well. They're in the art challenge section. So, you know, if it's a little bit blurry or maybe you want to zoom in, that's where you can find it. It'll be in our Discord channel. But yeah, I love the design. I love the kind of more toned down, very kind of old school Japanese block print type of a vibe. So yeah, I really love the aesthetic and texture that's happening with this drawing. And yeah, I'm gonna move on. And so our next one here, I guess this one's more of like a sci-fi fantasy, but I really like the shape language and design of this character. Thank you for showing Ollie. Oh, hey, Squiggle Doo. Yeah, no problem. Yeah, I really love the shape design of this one. So this one's by Iciobi. I don't know. Ikiobi? Don't know. But yeah, I love this mecha design. I guess it's more sci-fi than fantasy, but oh well. I think it's a really cool shape design though. It's like the pose is really cool. The lighting, I like that it's a little bit more limited. But yeah, maybe, you know, it's a little bit more on the rough sketch side, some like extra rendering could like really pop it off. But overall, great design. And on to the next one. Let's see. This one is by Hamada. I guess in a way another mecha sci-fi type one. But I feel like this one's like a good mixture of fantasy mixed with sci-fi a little bit. You know, they've got these kind of sweatpants and the clothing and the cloak really make it feel more fantasy. But I really like this one because of like the shape and like the overall clean cut geometry that's happening on the face designs. So yeah, awesome design, and love how the character is kind of held inside of this mecha robot or monster creature looking kind of person maybe. But yeah, I love that pose of how they're kind of just situated inside of the machine, I'm guessing. But yeah, it looks awesome. So that's kind of it for our challenge shout out. Love all the submissions so far. There have been so many works that have been submitted in Discord because it's, I guess, people really like the fantasy prompts. So if you want to continue submitting stuff for our art challenges, feel free to do so in our Discord. We take a look at them every beginning of stream. So feel free to continue uploading them, and we'll hopefully maybe you'll get a chance to see your work being propped up on the stream. Yeah. Cool. Okay. Cannot think of a single thing to submit. No worries, no worries. Okay. So 12 principles of, we still have 2 weeks. Yeah, we still got plenty of time. I mean, it's the middle of August, so we got a good amount of time. Don't worry. Oh, and we also have Kevin. I forgot to shout out Kevin last time because I think Kevin is our other mod, right? So we got Joanne, but then we also got Kevin. So I think last time I streamed, I saw Kevin in the chat, but I forgot to be like, hello, Kevin. You are our other mod backing up Joanne. So we appreciate the hard work you put in with keeping up with chat and modding it. So thank you, thank you. Okay, bye Angel, or Cool Angel. Thanks for dropping in. Okay, so we are going to start with the 12, I don't know why I said it like that, but the 12 principles of animation. And I guess I should have maybe imported it beforehand. Let me just bring it in real quick. Ooh, this is a big one. So if you guys have kept up with the community channel on our YouTube channel, you'll have seen that I put this up to kind of show the different types of animation principles that we'll be going over with. And these are the 12 main principles. There's obviously a lot of other things that can help when it comes to animating, but I would say that if you're brand new to animation and you kind of want to get started and you don't know where, the 12 principles is a very good way to kind of just understand how to get started going with animation. And that's what we're going to do. I'm going to be breaking down all the different principles one by one, and I guess the way that we'll do it is that I'm going to go through each one from the left down all the way down to the very bottom, because I think the first row would be kind of like the core. It's the most important stuff, especially squash and stretch, anticipation, straight ahead, pose to pose. Like those things are one of the core stuff. But then once we get into like probably the last row, that kind of stuff is less to do with maybe animation and more with like the technical side of things. Definitely timing and motion is very important to animation, but things like exaggeration, solid drawing, and appeal, that's kind of more personal style and approach. So yeah, either way, we're gonna go into every little bit of it, and hopefully I can get into all of them within the time limit. So right now, this is my setup for when I'm drawing and painting. So right now I'm just gonna open up my animation timeline. Okay, cool. And I'm just gonna, if this is your first time seeing Krita's animation system, this is how you can bring up the timeline. And I'm just gonna unpin everything because I don't need this stuff to animate. But we're going to start off with this layer over here. Okay, I'm just going to title this maybe Squash and Stretch, so that it's like clear as to what I'm doing. And then I can also like organize it and all that kind of stuff, because animation is all about organization, or at least it's a big part of it. I'm just gonna make sure that the settings are all correct. I like to start on like frame 1, and I don't think this should take too long, so I'll give it like 30 frames. Should be like decent, and usually I like to keep it at 24 frames a second. I'm just gonna check that it looks good. I'm gonna turn on my onion skin, and let's just take a look. Let's do a test run just to see if the onion skin works. Okay, cool, nice. It's looking good, and I'm gonna start with this. Hopefully you guys will be able to see everything, because the timeline does take quite a bit of space, so I'm just gonna try to maybe minimize it a bit. And I probably won't keep, I don't know if I'll keep the image up the whole time, but I might keep it when we go over it. So the first one we are going to go into, as you can see, is Squash and Stretch. Actually, I'm just gonna take a look at chat real quick. Based off animation, favorite show. I mean, Avatar is a pretty solid one. Avatar and like Legend of Korra is a pretty solid show to study animation from. I don't think there's any where it's blown my mind at the moment, but yeah, I don't know. Okay, cool. So the first one we're gonna do is Squash and Stretch. This is pretty much the core of most animation, and Squash and Stretch allows for our animations to feel very lively. It gives a lot of life and energy into our drawing. So a lot of the times when people first start animating, the first thing they'll do is, actually I guess I should have wrote this on somewhere else. I'm just gonna cut this and put this here. Okay, so when most people start animating, they usually will start with a ball, and I'll probably use a ball for the most part when demonstrating this, because it's the easiest, and it's probably one of the easiest ones to demonstrate for this one specifically, because there's a lot of different ways that you can change squashing and stretching. So for example, when we start off, we usually start with a ball, and when we go to the next frame, we usually have the ball squashed down to give it a little bit of energy, and then right as it's going up, it again stretches up to move. So you can see, like with a ball, even though it's like a very simple round shape, we want to make sure that the ball has a little bit of momentum and movement to it. So even though it's a very it's an object that has no life, it can't move on its own, in order to give it a little bit of oomph and exaggeration to it, we want to give it a little bit of stretching and squashing to it, so that the movements are more dynamic and there's a little bit more life to them. Oh, whoops, drew it on the wrong thing, wrong frame. And for those who are like maybe new to animation, onion skin is on, and onion skin is great for making sure that, you know, I know the trajectory of the objects and I know where things are going. So I'm just gonna like do it really quickly. It might not look the best right now, but hopefully this helps demonstrate how it might look. So it's gonna squash again. Maybe I'll have it touch. Oops. Maybe have it touch the ground first. somewhere like here. So there's a little contact point for animating. If I miss any of your questions, I'm really sorry. I'll try to keep up with it as much as possible. Animation takes quite a bit more focus than other types of art form because there's so much drawing involved. But what I'm doing right now is I'm trying to give a certain bounce and buoyancy to my drawings. So if I turn off onion skin, we got the normal ball, and then it squashes down to kind of build up energy. So the more you squash something, the more it should feel like there's more energy, there's more build up to it. And then as it launches, we want to give it a lot of space so it really shows the amount of energy that's needed to bounce the ball up. And then it hits a resting point, and then it drops back down, so there's a little bit of momentum building again, so that's where the stretch is coming from. And then it hits the ground for a contact, and then it squashes again, and then yeah, it's kind of what it would be. I don't know if it would play. Let's see if it would play. It's gonna be really quick, probably. Yeah. Just gonna maybe like shift everything over just a bit. I probably should have animated on 3s instead, since I'm not gonna be animating so many frames. Okay, let's see. If I play it, it's gonna be really it is really, yeah, jittery, and the momentum's not there, but you know, this is like a done in the moment kind of thing. But you can kind of see what I'm trying to go for, which is the stretchiness of the ball. So for squash and stretch, it's the first way to start building up life and energy for an inanimate object. But there's also squashing and stretching for other things as well. So it's not just in inanimate objects, but it's also a lot of squashing and stretching is also in characters. So for example, if I want to have a person jump, if I just do a simple kind of stickman type of person over here, the next one, he's going to squash down. He's going to squash down, and his body might hunch over, and his arms might start curling. And then his body's going to be hunched over too, and his legs are going to start bending down. And a key part to this is making sure that the placement of where the character starts is about the same. And then, as he's squashing down and building up energy, he's going to jump up. And maybe since this is a person, he won't jump up too high. But I'm going to maybe like turn on a few more onion skins in this case. Person is going to like stretch up. And then maybe like the hands are going to be very on the side, very tapered. And like maybe I'll stretch out the body even as well to exaggerate the form. And like have the legs be hanging off. And then as the person reaches the apex, or the height, maximum height of the jump, the person actually will start squashing back a little bit. So the hands are going to move up with the shoulders as well. And then the body might like sway a little bit. And because when you hit a resting point, all that energy from the bottom of the body also has to catch up with the top of the body. So what happens is your legs might actually also come up as well. And to make it more interesting and have a little bit more personality with the jump, what I might do is have the legs be a little bit imbalanced. So maybe one leg is higher than the other. So we get a little bit of this. So if I show what it looks like, it might be like he's standing, hunching down, building up energy, and then you got the jump for the stretch, and then now he's landing in his resting spot. And then what I might do is like have a little bit of a hover as well, maybe, to really let the body, settle in. So I'll raise the hand even higher, maybe, have the legs bit higher and really just build up that kind of energy that's kind of stored up in the jump. So right now that's like 4 drawings, and now that the momentum is held up there, the person is going to start falling back down. So maybe I'll put the drawing here, and I might stretch out the head a little bit to exaggerate it. The arms might be high up now. Again, might not keep them perfectly symmetrical, but I'm going to have the leg that was hunched bent in the most. That one's going to be the one hitting the ground first, and then the other leg is following suit afterwards. So I'm just going to constantly check just to make sure I got it down. And then when it hits the ground again, it's going to squash again. So it's going to really squash down. Something like that, maybe. So we track it again. This is what it's gonna kind of look like. So you can see that squashing and stretching doesn't just have to happen with a ball. It can also happen with a human person as well. It's just going to be maybe less exaggerated, well, but it also depends on how cartoony you want to make the drawing. But yeah, like I was seeing the reactions go crazy. Yeah, I see it on my peripheral. Everybody, you know, I'm like seeing all the 100 and whatnot. What am I using? I am using Krita, but it also work with an object. Yeah. So squashing and stretching also, you know, a ball makes sense because, you know, we think of basketballs, golf balls, tennis balls, like those things are bouncy. But you'll notice if you think of like a lot of old school Looney Tunes or Disney stuff, you know, they add a lot of personality as well to things that are inanimate. So like, you know, Mrs. Pot from Beauty and the Beast, he's kind of like she's a porcelain teapot. So how did they add squash and stretch to a character like her? Or even something like the carpet from Aladdin. You know, those things are technically, they shouldn't have any life to them, but they feel bouncy and they feel full of life. So squashing and stretching is kind of like the first major fundamental that you should know just to try out squashing and stretching, because it builds up life and personality into your animation. And if you want to make something feel heavier and stiffer, for like a ball, for example, maybe instead of having the ball bounce, you know, squash down really, really low, what you would do is you would have the ball just squash down a little bit. Oh, whoops. The thing too, though, with squashing and stretching is that you should try to keep the same mass within the objects no matter what. So for example, this ball, I'm not going to make it all of a sudden like this, because it doesn't match the volume and mass of the object or what it had originally. So when I'm trying to do squashing and stretching, I'm trying to also keep track of how much that object should squash and how much it should stretch. So for the first one, the first ball that we did, like this one, that one maybe you could be like, oh, it's a bouncy ball, it's a tennis ball, it's very squishy. But if it's a bowling ball, which is dense and really solid, it might barely squash down if I wanted to do it. And if I wanted to go up in the air, it might just move like that. It might be like really, really small. And it might not even stretch that much either. So it's all about kind of experimenting and seeing what you can kind of get away with, basically. And then maybe it settles in the air for a little bit. And this is going to go into timing, but that's kind of afterwards. Right now, this is more of like all the different possibilities when it comes to squashing and stretching. So the ball might already come back down to the ground because it's so heavy and it's so weighty and dense. It doesn't have a lot of air time, it can't stretch that much, and then when it hits back to the ground, it's just back to being a solid ball kind of thing. So you can see like the bowling ball, it's like, or it's kind of like a rock. It barely jumps. Whereas like you can see the other stuff, it's a lot more bouncier. It's a lot more kind of goopy and elasticy, I guess, in a way. And so that's how you can like change and adjust the squashing and stretching to convey different materials, different types of personality, and all that kind of stuff. What is my opinion on Adobe Animate? I actually have never tried it out before, so not too sure. But I have tried out. What have I tried? I've tried Krita. SketchBook actually has a flipbook on it, and that's not too bad either. I know Procreate's animation's not too bad. I originally started on Maya, but Maya's not Maya's not affordable for most people, but it's more of like a 3D animation type of thing. Flip a Clip. I have heard about Flip a Clip, but unfortunately, I think it's only on mobile, right? Like iPad and stuff. So I don't think I ever tried Flip a Clip, but I've heard that it's a good alternative. Yeah. Yeah, exactly, Joanne. Is like all the different how you stretch and squash things will change how something feels. So that's squashing and stretch. Oh, I guess I forgot to do one for an inanimate object. I guess I'll do a really quick one for like let's say a cube. And then before it moves, it can like kind of slant something like this, and then it'll like zoom out, something like this maybe, and then, or actually maybe it should be the opposite direction. It like swings forward. Or actually, you know what? No, maybe it will hit that, and then it'll stretch. It'll stretch even more to kind of like launch itself, and then it bounces back, and then it hits its resting position. So maybe something like that is how you can animate something inanimate. It's a rough one. But that's how I would do it. It's like you start adding personality, even if it's you know, inanimate. It's a solid object. You can still think about like, oh, what kind of personality does it have? Is it slow? Is it fast? Is it zooming? You know, exactly. Is it a zoomy box? Is it a slow box? Is it a snail type of movement? Like thinking about these personality traits can help start you fleshing out what type of animation speed and timing it might have. Yeah. Preferred number of frames per second. I usually start work with 24 because that's kind of how I learned it. But when I'm blocking it out, I'll probably start off doing it in animation on ones, which means I draw, or animation on twos, which means I animate on every other frame. But for the stream purposes, in order to make it still feel a little bit speedy and have a little bit of life to it, I'll animate on threes, which means every other 2 frames. So you can see that there's 2 gaps on my timeline in between every frame. So animating on ones would mean that there's only 1 frame in between, but if I'm animating on threes, it means there's 2 frames in between. Yeah. I don't know if we would get into that. It's not really a principle of animation. It's more of like a technique to help timing things. Yeah. Program has 1 brush. Yeah, honestly, I'm like that too. I like simplicity. Simplicity is good. Okay, so we're gonna move on now. No more squashing and stretching. We are gonna move on to anticipation. Now, anticipation is interesting. I guess I'll group these. I'll group this and say this is squash and stretch. Now, I might not actually animate for every single principle. What I might do is instead only animate for some of the stuff that needs animating. Others times it might just be whatever is. If I can draw it, I might just do that. So this one is well, don't you love my spelling? Anticipation. Okay. Anticipation. So what is anticipation? So you notice that for animation's already super complicated, so finding ways to simplify things already like so much. Thanks for teaching us for free. Yeah, no problem. I am kind of speeding through this, so hopefully you're able to catch it all, but yeah, I'll try to do my best, and if you have any questions down the road, feel free to ask it. So, anticipation. What is anticipation? Anticipation is when you want to set up your animation before anything big happens. So you can remember that for the, the square, you know how I didn't immediately just have the square zoom over onto the other side? The square had a little bit of a buildup, so it winded and then it moves over. Hold up. Yeah, so you see how my square starts here, and then before it zooms over to the right hand of the screen, it leans back. That's kind of anticipation. So in order to set up a movement, you want to try to setting up how much it's going to go. So before I have the square move over to the right hand side of the screen, it's going to build up momentum by leaning back. It's winding up before it launches to the other side. So yeah, it's winding back, and then it launches itself forward, reaches the other side. There's a little bit of like a stopping. It's braking itself, and then because it's stopping, it has a little bit of a kickback, and then it sits back to its original position. So you can actually, it's moving not too bad actually if I scrub through really quickly. Hopefully it reads on stream, like how fast, and it's wiggle when it does it. But if you didn't have anticipation or wind up, the drawing can feel a little weird. Like imagine if, I guess this would be the example. Let's just call this animation and anti. We'll call this anti. And then we'll put a first frame in there. Turn on onion skin. Yeah, animation is awesome, but there's, yeah, definitely a lot of stuff to build up to. And hello, Lemonade. Hello. Okay, so for anticipation, it's kind of like a wind-up, like Joe said. It's kind of like a wind-up for a baseball. So for or a boxer. So imagine a person is kind of just standing here, and this is how they're positioning themselves, and then all of a sudden in the next frame, let me turn on. In the next frame, we have the person already throw the punch. Let's see which leg. It should be this leg in front. So let's say I flip back. Doesn't it look weird? It kind of looks like what? The person just kind of shoots a punch forward, but it feels like it lacks impact, it lacks momentum, it lacks personality. It's lacking quite a lot of things. So this is where we want to have momentum. So in this case, instead of putting it as the next frame, maybe I'll have it be this one over here. So instead, my next frame will be the person maybe leaning back a little bit, maybe putting the hand like here, kind of leaning back, and maybe they'll stick the other hand forward kind of getting ready for the punch. Let's see, which leg is moving forward? It's that one. Okay, so this one, maybe they take a step forward, and this one, maybe the legs are bent a little bit. So instead of just immediately throwing the punch, we want to have the character slowly build up that momentum. Maybe I'll just turn off some of the onion skins so I can see where to position this leg. Actually, maybe this one too. I would have this leg maybe be a little bit more forward. And then this one can be, maybe he hasn't taken the step yet. He's lifting up his leg, kind of thing. So it's not quite there yet. It's kind of getting there. You know, he's taking the step forward. He's launching his arm back, and he's sticking the hand out, and then there's the punch. But it's still lacking it. So this is where, you know, timing and build up is all in the anticipation part of it. So instead of immediately going to the wind up, we can maybe set it up even more by having the character slowly wind up to it. So right now I'm kind of in betweening, but not quite. We're like leading up to the wind up. We're building up to the anticipation. But I would say that this is pretty much all still in the anticipation side of things. Yeah. It's looking okay. I might lean this one, maybe even more. Maybe it'll come forward even more. Maybe I'll have this hand kind of come out. That means the head might have to lean forward more. So this is kind of like the whole planning process of animation sometimes. You never know if it'll work immediately on the spot. You kind of just have to do it and see what it feels like. This one, I think I was trying to have the leg go up. Actually, that final one feels a bit better. Maybe I might just still move it forward even more. And I'm gonna have the leg bend instead. Yeah. So, I mean, this is still kind of the planning process. Like, you know, a lot of animation is kind of finessing and kind of doing all the, you know, finicky type of stuff, trying to fine tune it, get the momentum right. But anticipation is all about getting it set up. So if you look at the original, not that one, where did I put it? And oh, did I delete it accidentally? Oh, maybe I did accidentally delete it. Oh wait, see? No. Oh, here it is. Okay, so you can see here, like this is the baseball windup. This would be in anticipation. It's preparing for the baseball throw. The pitcher doesn't ever stand there and then immediately throw the ball. That doesn't really make sense. It would not really work. So you would need a build-up. Sometimes every anticipation is going to be a little bit different. Sometimes it's very dynamic. Sometimes it's going to be a little bit more subtle and everything. Draw a base and then animate the character on top. Do you need animate a base? Like a ground floor? Is that what you mean? I mean, not necessarily. A ground floor might help in terms of letting you understand where the feet is starting from. So, yes, I mean, like you could always put, like if you're just drawing a simple thing like a ball, so if I just do a simple ball like this, anticipation could be the ball leaning back. It's building up that momentum, and then maybe building it up even more, holding that pose, and then launching itself forward. So you can see I'm using stretch, and then maybe it goes off screen, and then it has to whip back because of all the speed that's happening. And then it like still bounces a bit more, but it's starting to retain its shape again. And then maybe it rocks back a little bit more. And then now it's back to its original shape. So that's kind of, and you know, anticipation with a bit of squash and stretch added to it. So the ball doesn't just zip across the screen. It leans back to build up that anticipation, and the anticipation works even better because I'm holding it. There's one stage of anticipation, and then one more, and then it launches itself, and then whips back, and then goes back to its resting spot. So I'm just scrubbing through it really quickly so it looks really zippy and fast, but it doesn't have to always be like this, but this is probably like the easiest way to maybe demonstrate it. Yeah. If your planning is a bigger action or sketch, it's great to figure out what you want it to look like. Yeah, so, you know, animation, a big part of it is planning, storyboarding. I mean, you know, if you have enough experience and you know exactly what you're going for, you can always just kind of wing it and do it in the moment. But yeah, for more complicated type of animation sequences, planning is a big part of it. Excuse me, my bad. Okay, let's see. So that's anticipation. At the core of it, the big takeaway is that anticipation allows you to build up for a motion or a sequence. Actually, sometimes anticipation doesn't have to be an action in itself. Anticipation can also be someone kind of looking this way. Hold up. Okay. Sometimes anticipation doesn't just have to be motion. It can also be something where the character is about to look for something. So before they, like, let's say, point at someone, they might look over first at the person, and then maybe maybe they're like, whoa, hey, it's my buddy, you know? They'd be like, hey, that's my friend. And then they'll go and point at someone. So beforehand, it might just be a normal pose. They're just standing there chilling, minding their own business. And then they see their friend. And then they might start raising up their hand to be like, whoa, hey, that's my friend. So sometimes anticipation doesn't always have to be a very dynamic motion. It can be a build-up and a setup for a sequence that's about to happen. Yeah. So that's anticipation. Let me see. It's already 5:48. Oh my goodness. Okay. Let's see. Next one is staging. So staging, maybe I might not, this one, I might not actually do a animation sequence for, because I feel like there's no real reason to animate this. This one's more about composition and such. So staging is literally as the naming describes it. You know, animation is already so complicated, and there's so much already when it comes to animating that you don't want to overcomplicate it by having so many things going on. So staging is also about finding the focus of the shot. So let's say, for example, if, you know, a sequence is of a person, you know, walking down the street. I didn't mean for it to sound like Arthur. But let's say that's a shot of someone walking down the street, and they, you know, this is the focus of the shot. You know, let's give this person maybe some clothes so it doesn't look like they're just strolling around naked. But let's say it's someone just walking down the street. You don't want to have too many things to, you know, start distracting what the sequence is about. You know, if this is the focus, maybe I might have some trees moving around in the background. I might have a building move across the background. But if the focus is really just the character, I don't want to all of a sudden have, you know, a dog run in front of the person. Maybe a bird flying and hitting a building and crashing into the windows, and I don't know, knocking over computers inside of the building. Kids running across the street and doing all sorts of action. It starts causing a bunch of chaos. Like, I mean, if you want chaos, then sure. But if you don't want chaos and you want the audience to make sure they know where they're looking at, then make sure that there's not a bunch of stuff all over the place, kind of thing. So I feel like staging is pretty straightforward. The other thing that comes with staging, it might not be literal, like putting someone and staging it. It's also making sure that the action is clear. Let's say if this is my shot and the focus is of a person over here and they're talking to someone on the other side. You know, the other person, maybe don't have them like way off over here and you can't see them. It's like, okay, well, who are we talking to? You know, maybe make it clear by having the person in the shot and making it clear who this person is talking to. Make the eye contact and direction clear. Make sure there's enough spacing. This is definitely more on like the storyboarding and planning side and storytelling side of things. But making sure your animation is clear. If the person is, let's say, about to hand over something to the other person that's over here, you don't want all of a sudden I don't know, a giant table that's like here, and then there's a vase blocking the hand, and then there's like flowers coming up blocking the shot, because now you can't see the action. It's kind of obscuring the, you know, the sequence that's happening. So you want your action and your sequence to be clear, have it be readable, make sure people are understanding what is happening with your sequence. So that's kind of staging. Pretty straightforward. Birds aren't real. Oh my goodness. Don't even start. Don't go there. Okay, so the next one. This is straight ahead versus pose to pose action. Now this one is a little bit more on the technical side. So this is kind of something that we brought up beforehand when someone asked like, oh, what's the frame rate that I like to animate in? And this kind of, well, actually, I guess it doesn't really, well, it depends on how you animate, I guess, in a sense. So straight ahead versus pose to pose. Straight ahead and pose to pose is the core of what it really takes to set up your sequence. So for example, I'll do straight ahead. Straight ahead is when you just animate right in the moment and you don't draw like every other frame. You kind of draw every single frame bit by bit. And straight ahead is great for things that are organic and fluid. So things that are kind of hard to track. Things like fire, things like the ocean or the trees moving in the wind, or something that's a little bit more easier to track or a bit more predictable. That's kind of what straight ahead is. So I'm gonna do a little bit demonstration for straight ahead. What I'm gonna do is, again, we're gonna do the whole ball, zipping across the screen, but instead of zipping, it's going to bounce across the screen. And maybe I don't really know exactly what it's gonna do, so I'm just gonna follow my gut and follow the momentum that I think this ball is gonna head in, and it's gonna squash, start building up the momentum. So this is, again, anticipation, and then it's going to zip across the screen. And then because I want it to go really fast, I'm gonna have it be very far from its jumping position so that there's a lot of space, and then it's gonna hit the corner of my canvas. And because it's hitting there, it's gonna splat. It's gonna be really, really flat. And then because it's hitting that ceiling with so much momentum, it's gonna bounce and go somewhere like maybe here. And because it's hitting again with so much momentum, it's gonna zip over here and hit the ground, and then again maybe have another splat. So this is animating straight ahead because I'm not really planning it out. I'm kind of animating as I'm going. I'm drawing the next frame bit by bit. So if I scrub through this from the beginning, this is kind of what it looks like. Maybe let's play it. Hopefully it works. I guess it could be faster on the landing part, but this is what it looks like. It's launching itself up in the air, and it's going really fast. But this is animating straight ahead. I didn't do any planning. I basically worked on frame 1, and then went to frame 2, went to frame 3, 4, 5, and just kept moving bit by bit. So that's animating straight ahead, and it's great for things that are hard to plan for. Now, animating pose to pose, that's a little different. This one is better for sequences where someone might need to, let's say jump from one side to the other. So I'm just gonna skip the whole anticipation side of it, and this person is gonna be jumping from one side of the screen to the other. And this one, what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna be like, you know what? This jump is gonna take 19 frames. So he's gonna land on the other side, let's say like this. This is the next pose of how he's gonna look like. So I want to go from here to here. So this is planning pose to pose, because what I'm doing is I'm planning out where he's starting and then the trajectory of that pose. I'm going from one pose to the next, and this is called, I'm planning out my key poses. They're the most important ones, but they're also kind of the most extreme ones. So Ibis Paint, dang, you can animate on Ibis Paint? I mean, you know, at the end of the day, it's just moving images. So if you can put it all together, you can technically animate on PowerPoint as well. So, you know, so yeah, this is pose to pose. This is one key pose, and then this is another key pose. And then what I might do is try to figure out what this person will look like in the middle of the pose. So maybe they're in the air somewhere here. Maybe they have their arm kind of back again, and their body is tilting, and their leg is anticipating the impact of the jump. So maybe it looks like this. So now it looks more like this. Now it doesn't really look like much, but now I have an idea as to the trajectory of the jump. So I can see that this is where it's starting, this is where it's kind of heading into, and then this is how it's landing, how my person's going to be landing. So you can see I'm not filling out my timeline frame by frame by frame by frame, but instead what I'm doing is I'm trying to track what I want the momentum to be. And maybe I'll make this one a bit higher. Let's see. Boom, boom. So this is animating pose to pose. Now I'm not going to do this entire sequence, but what I would do if I was animating this is I would start drawing the next frames. Again, filling in the middle. So maybe before, actually this first frame, maybe this would be the one in the middle. But the second one, maybe I'll have the person standing up and maybe getting ready to take a step and take a jump. So maybe they might look like this. They're like getting ready to jump. And maybe I would have to move this pose forward more. So this is the planning stage of it. I'm kind of planning all my main poses. And you can see I'm a bit more intentional. I'm a bit more careful with how I want to go about doing my sequence. And again, maybe this one will be here, and then this one will be of the person kind of taking a step and then recovering themselves. Maybe the leg is bent to like cushion the landing, and they're like way hunched over. Something like this. And you know, if you mess up the position and timing of the pose, that's okay. You know, it's all about reorganizing and replacing where those frames might be. So right now, this is doing something frame by frame. And if I scrub through it really quickly, this is kind of what it looks like. Again, this is how you would block in a sequence. Now, the best one, you might be like, do I do pose to pose or straight ahead? And the best thing for more complicated sequences is to actually do both of them at the same time. So you start off a sequence by doing pose to pose, kind of like how I've been doing with this jumping across sequence. But then after I get this down, what I might do is instead of still going pose to pose, I might start doing straight aheads for each of the main sections. So you can see from frame 1 to frame 5, I might now do the in-betweens and do that straight ahead for 2, 3, and 4. And then I might do the same thing from frame 5 to frame 9. Instead of doing it pose to pose, I might start doing straight aheads from frame 6 to frame 8. Because they're so close together already, there's no point in animating pose to pose all the way through and trying to plan in between, like, oh, this is where the person will be halfway here, and then this was where the person will look like halfway through. Instead, it's like it's much easier and better to just kind of go through it straight ahead at this point, because I already know what it might look like, and that's how I would do it. So that's kind of straight ahead versus pose to pose. I have not taken a look at chat for a while, but let me scroll back and see what's going on. Oh, cat. Cats being cute. Cats are very adorable. Yeah. I have no idea how they did it, but they made sprites and everything. What? Oh, for the animation? Yeah. Cute. Man, Flash? I've never tried Flash, but I know that that's kind of how a lot of people did it. Would the middle of the jump be a key pose too? It could be. Yeah. Let's see. What did I... Yeah, it could be a key pose. This one, actually, maybe I wouldn't put it as a key, but I would put it as an extreme. Extreme, you know, I guess it's so appropriate. He's jumping over. because it's a very dynamic pose. It's kind of similar to a walking sequence. Your key poses is when your feet switch, and then everything in between might be more of like an extreme pose or and whatnot. It's more of like how you want to categorize and label your things to make it make sense for yourself. Yeah. Files are... Oh. Yeah, I feel like a lot of people have had trouble installing Krita. It's kind of weird. It's interesting. Okay, so we're gonna move on to the next one. Let's see. This is the ground. What was this? This was... Oh, this was my ball. My ball 4. Let's call this SVSP. I don't know what it means. Yeah. Okay, so the next one we're gonna do is follow through, and overlapping action. Oh, this one, I don't know if I'll be able to animate this one, but the quick breakdown of it is, it's kind of, let's see. It's a tricky one. I'm trying to figure out an easy way to explain it. But for example, like this person, this lady walking with the feather in the hat and the scarf, it would be kind of like as she's moving and as she's bobbing up and down and bouncing, the feather is moving and the scarf has to follow along with the momentum and flow with her walking and her momentum. So those would be kind of overlapping actions, because the main action that's happening is her walk. Her walking is the main thing that's happening, but the follow through is that if she's bouncing, that means anything that's loose also has to move alongside with it. So I guess as an example, let's say I again go back to the good old ball. Good old ball over here. If this ball had, let's say, an antenna on top of it, when the ball is leaning back, let's say this ball leans back again, we're adding everything that we used, doing a little bit of anticipation. If this ball whipped itself really, really far back, this antenna is going to follow through with that motion. It's because it's connected to the ball, it's going to follow with that momentum. But the thing is, because the ball is the main thing that's moving, the antenna isn't going to move simultaneously with the ball. It's going to have a little bit of a delay. And then as the ball zips forward or leans forward to move forward, that antenna is the same thing. It's going to have a bit of a drag. It's going to maybe stretch a little to have a bit of momentum. So here's a little... This is a little bit of pose to pose. Let's see. You know what? This one I feel like maybe I could do some build up for it. So let's see. It's... So it's going this way. And it's not going to be fully stretched like it is on the next frame. And because it's leaning forward, the antenna is still going to be here. And maybe it's going to be like this. And then same thing on the other side before it zips over to its fully extended portion. This antenna might be actually over here, closer to the center. So instead of being way over at the edge now, it's going to be like maybe over here. I don't know. Let's see how that looks. Yeah, it's okay. And then as it's zipping, let's say it goes across the screen now. This antenna might be like way over here. It's really stretching and it's really moving across the screen. This is what it's going to be doing. Probably. Again, sometimes you just never know how it's going to turn out until you draw it and put it into motion to see if it works. Let's scrub through it. Let's see if it works. It kind of works. Yeah. So you can see that the follow through is the fact that the antenna needs to follow the momentum and the speed of the ball. The next one, let's say, is that the ball then bounces back this way. Kind of like how we did in the straight ahead kind of momentum. Because it's now slowing down, but it's still going pretty fast. This antenna will still be pretty quick. And then as it resides back to its original shape, the antenna is going to have an overlapping action where the ball is no longer moving, but the antenna still has a lot of momentum into it. So it still needs to kind of catch up to how the ball is just sitting there. So the antenna might still have a little bit of momentum and it needs to kind of just wait a little bit until it's finally back in its normal position. So if I play it, yeah, so something like that. It's not, it's not the best, but I'm just doing it in the moment. But you can see that the follow through is how the antenna needs to follow the momentum of the main action that's happening, which is the ball zipping across the screen. That's the follow through, is the antenna following the momentum. And the overlapping action is the fact that the ball is now no longer moving and the antenna needs to kind of slow down and catch up again with how the fact that the main ball is no longer moving. Yeah. Okay, yeah, no worries. Bye, Turtle Buns. It was great that you were able to join us. What are your thoughts on animating with Clip Studio? Oh yeah, perfectly fine. Yeah. I know a lot of people and a lot of professionals animate on Clip Studio. Yeah, I think a lot of actually like anime studios also use Clip Studio, so animating on Clip Studio is perfectly fine. It's just that we recommend Krita. Well, not recommend, but we use Krita because it's free and it's easily accessible to most people. Whereas Clip Studio, you gotta pay. I think in Canada, full price is like what, 40, 50 bucks, I think. If you get it on sale, which isn't too bad, you can get it for like 25 bucks, I think. 20, 30 maybe, roughly. That's how I got Clip Studio. But Krita is completely free and you can animate on it. Autodesk SketchBook is also free, and you can animate on it, but it's a little bit more limited. So it's kind of up to you on like what you're able to get access to and how much you're willing to kind of invest for a software. But yeah, that's follow through in overlapping action. We're slowly moving through the list. Next one is slow in and slow out. This is like another classic animation principle that everyone should try to get down and know. So, but this one, again, good old ball and chain. Gotta, it's the easiest to demonstrate with the ball. So whenever you first start animating, this is probably the first thing you should learn how to do, which is move a ball across the screen. So I'm going to try to use everything that we've gone through in this kind of like demonstration in this stream. So far, all of the principles that we've gone over, I'm going to try to use. So what is slow in and slow out? So you can see here on the diagram over here, it's a picture of a finger kind of flicking upwards, and you can see that there's a bunch of these like ticks and marks across this kind of arching motion. And what this does is it indicates to animators, especially if you're working with a team, of how fast you want this motion to be. So for example, most organic things will move starting off slow, build up speed in the middle, and then slow down. So that's what this one over here represents. This one over here represents how when things start moving, they go very slow, they speed up in the middle, so that's what those big gaps are, and then it slows down at the end. Whereas there's motion like this is kind of rare, but sometimes if you want to do like slow motion, what you can do is have it be fast and then slow down in like maybe this sequence or motion where you're like, oh, I want to look really cool and show off the action and the pose. You can have it slow down actually in the middle and speed back up. So a lot of action movies kind of do this where the characters jump in the air about to throw a punch and then it slows down right before the big punch happens. So that would be slow, slow in and then slow out. Where this one is ease out and then ease in, because you're going slow, speed up, and then slow down at the end. I always mix them up though, but yeah, I like to say starts off slow, speeds up in the middle, and then slows that back down. So most organic things do that. If motion is consistent, meaning there's no slowing down, no speeding up, then it feels very mechanical. So robots move in motions like that. Mostly robots. Yeah, no, I don't think there's any other thing that I can think of where something just moves in very robotically. Actually, I guess a good example would be PowerPoint. You know, those old school PowerPoint presentations where the words just slowly kind of slide into screen. That would be a constant movement. And I guess I could do a really quick constant movement. So here's a ball. And we're going to do pose to pose. Going to go frame 12 and say that there is the ball. This same ball is going to be on this side now. And then what I'm going to do is go like, okay, now in the middle, there's going to be a ball over here. And then in the middle of that, ball's going to be over here. Middle of this, ball's going to be over here. And all I'm doing is just dividing it in half. Kind of being like, yeah, there's going to be a ball here. Ball here. So now I'm doing it straight ahead. And then ball here, ball here, ball here, and then ball here. So now you can see that if I were to play this, it's just a constant motion. The ball would just move very constantly. There's no speeding up. There's no speeding down, there's no slowdown. It's just a constant movement moving across the screen. But what if I want to do a ball that moves more naturally? So now what I would do is I would do the same thing. Oh, whoops. I would do the same thing and have the ball be here. And then also go like, you know what? I'm going to draw pose to pose. Plan out where I think the ball should be. Ball's going to be over here. And what I'm going to do is go to the very middle, so which is frame 6. And be like, you know what? I think the ball is going to be also smack dab in the middle. But this time, instead of having the ball be in the middle like it was on the constant, I'm going to have it be closer to the original ball. And then this one's going to be very close. And then this one's going to be further away. And then this one's going to be the furthest away. And then I'm going to do that same thing on the other side. Gonna maybe... Actually, I might just do this bit by bit. Do it straight ahead at this point. I feel like it'd be kind of tedious to do it bit by bit. Might have messed up the spacing a little bit, but let's adjust it by just moving it here, moving this here, moving this, moving this here. And there we go. And so if I play this now, you can see that it slows up, builds up momentum, speeds up in the middle, and then slows down at the end. I can build it up even more if I wanted to, and have the second frame be really, really close. This one be still pretty close. This one, whoops. This one start moving away more, and then this one over here. Then we have our middle. And then I could do the same thing, but now on the opposite side. Just have it be really, really close. So I'm slowly spacing it out more. And let's play it this time and see how it feels. Now this is so much more different. 12 frames is really quick for something to move across the screen. But now it's even more obvious about how it builds up momentum on the opposite sides. Yeah. And then you can compare it to the constant one, so which is the one at the lower row. The lower row one, it's moving at a constant speed, doesn't slow down, doesn't speed up. And then the one on top builds up momentum and then speeds up in the middle and then slows down. So you can see the timing is different, even though they take the same amount of frames to do. And this is really key because every other momentum in animation basically builds off of this. How you're able to control a slowdown or a speed up or control constant movement is how you can change animation, how you can change personality traits, convey emotions, and all that kind of stuff. I'm just going to save, just in case. I'm not going to do the other one where it speeds up in the beginning, slows down, and then it speeds up again, because it's pretty much the same as this one. Or, let's see. It's pretty much the same as this one. The only thing that's different about it is yeah, the only thing different about it is that it's the opposite. So it speeds up in the beginning, slows down in the middle, and then speeds up again at the end. So yeah, pretty much pretty straightforward. And you can see that this is where spacing comes into as well for slow in and slow out. So the closer something is to each other, you can see in the beginning we had the balls be really close. If something is really close to one another, then it will feel slower. If something starts getting further and more spaced out from each other, then it will appear faster. And this also comes into how you want to time things out, which we'll get into later. It's in the lower half of the grid, but that's going to be spacing and timing. But that was S and S. S and S. Or S, oh, I guess it shouldn't be slow S and S. It should be S and O. Slow in and out. Cannot express how happy I'm in it. Oh, thank you. Yeah. And I'm like, let's see. Other kind of chats going, Sweats and Chibi and get to tune in the stream. Hello. Hello. Thanks for joining. Okay, so the next one, this is arcs. And this one seems pretty cool because it's like, oh, I'm using a sword to demonstrate arcs. And yeah, you know, that's how you would animate a sword swing, is through the arch of the motion. But the other thing about arcs is that anything that's organic usually will be moving in an arced kind of motion. So, for example, if let's say a person is looking one way, this is kind of classic head turn animation, I guess, sequence. If a person is going to turn their head, they're going to have a little bit of anticipation where the eyes are going to start looking the other way first. And then the head starts following. And again, easing out, building up that momentum. But so here's like a really subtle thing that's actually happening, which is I'm actually dipping the head lower and lower. So if you take a look at where the first drawing is versus this current one, you'll notice that the head started over here, then it starts moving down until we get to our resting spot, and it's probably going to move back up just a little bit. And so this is the interesting thing about human movements, or things that are organic and when they're moving, is that they're always moving in an arched movement. So even for something simple like a head turn, it doesn't just swivel. Our heads don't kind of swivel on a stick. It's actually pivoting because our neck is on our shoulders and our body is organic. So everything starts moving in an arched path. So again, if I turn off my onion skin, there's like a terrible sequence. I guess I should probably try cleaning it up a little bit. So the second one, I guess I shouldn't move it too much. Like I said, it's the eyes that move first, and then start looking at where the character wants to go. And then you can see like character looks, head starts turning, goes down, and then what's going to happen is the head is going to move back up just slightly. So I'm animating straight ahead right now just to keep it simple, and the head movement isn't too crazy either. I guess I should have the neck still there. So I'm just going to scrub through it just to see what it looks like. Yeah, that doesn't look too bad. You know, it's kind of jittery, but you can see that the head movement feels a little bit more natural because it's moving up and down. It's bobbing. Whereas if you just have the head, let's try to do another version of it. If I had a head, let's say, just on the neck, and we'll do the exact same pose. But this time the head doesn't move, and it's just the eyes following the motion path of like the head turn. You'll see that it looks really odd because it kind of looks like the faces, like the facial features are just sliding across the screen. So I know this is like a really simplified kind of demonstration, but hopefully it shows that like when you have the head just swivel, it looks very mechanical, whereas one looks a little bit more like it has an organic movement to it. Everything is new. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I'm afraid of line art and the final results. Oh yeah, line art can be pretty tricky. Yeah, thanks Joanne for plugging in a video about like line work. Yeah. He's on a rotating platform. Yeah, actually, yeah. He does look like he's on a microwave. Yeah, so that's kind of why it feels more mechanical. If you just have the face rotate on, like just the, you know, the face move linearly across the face, it looks very kind of odd and very like its head is on a microwave platter. Whereas if you add even just like a little bit of an arch dip, which is what I did on the first one, it already looks a little bit more natural, a little bit more humanistic. And that's because as people and as organic beings, we move in arches. So I don't know if anyone's ever seen, you know, that person drawn by Leonardo da Vinci. I was about to say DiCaprio, and I'm like, wait, that's not correct. It's not Leonardo DiCaprio. But you know this thing, I forgot what this person is called. But you know how there's like a giant circle that's oh whoops. Let me You know how there's like a giant circle that goes around the person that looks like this? The reason why this is here is because it's to show that every movement that we do, it moves in a circular type of movement. So when we're moving our legs, when we're moving our arms, it's all in an arched type of movement. So no matter what we're doing, it's never going to be in a linear movement. It's going to be in a circle. So that was kind of it for arcs. Try moving organic things in an arched movement. Even whether the person is jumping, whether a person is moving their head or moving their finger. You can see that for the slow in and slow out. I moved it in a curve. It's not just a straight line up and down. So you want to make sure everything moves in an arched type of movement so that it feels more organic and it makes it just look a lot more natural. Leonardo da Vinci in Titanic, exactly. Yeah, Winter like outfit prompt for Oliver. Oh, your character submission? You got the parka. Oh no, not what about, did anybody play that game Bread and Fred? Or what is it, Fred and Bread? That one, the one with the penguins trying to climb a mountain or something? You should give them that kind of outfit. Just a parka, normal parka, but make them really like tubular and chunky. Okay, so we're gonna move on. We got half an hour left. I should be able to do this. So we got secondary action. Now, secondary action is very similar to staging, and in some ways, it kind of is. It shares a lot of similarities with follow through and overarching or overlapping action. But secondary action should be kind of in a ways. It can be just as important as the main action, or not as important, but it's kind of like in terms of, I guess, hierarchy. You got the main action, and then secondary action is the stuff that's over here, the secondary action. So it can still be important, and it can still be something that people will pay attention to, but it just will be the stuff that's not the main focus of the shot. So for example, I had a person over here, they're kind of whistling, but they're also moving their hands. So the moving of their hands, like this movement where they're maybe like moving their hands around, this would be a secondary action. But the whistling, this part is the main action. So them bobbing their head maybe side to side while whistling, this is our first most important action and sequence. But then the hand moving side to side, this would be secondary. And it's not a follow through or an overlap because the hands are also moving on their own. Breaks over. Oh no. Okay, thank you. Thanks for joining, Scarecrow. Hopefully you can catch us again next time. Yeah, so secondary action is something that can be done on its own and doesn't have to follow with what the body is doing. So it's not an overlapping and it's not a follow through type of an action. The hands moving side to side is something that they do on their own. I guess we can just jump over that because I think the next one is the one that's going to be kind of tricky. So secondary is kind of similar to staging, where it's all about the planning and figuring out what type of animation sequence you want to do and what you want to prioritize. So I guess in the sense, like, you know what, I'll just do a quick secondary action one. Even though I said I won't do it. So let's say we go back to the person walking, walking across the street. Let's make this person look a little bit like Arthur. Little Arthur reference. I realize I don't really remember what Arthur looks like. I just realized his ears are on the top of his head, but then his glasses, where do they sit? Are they just floating there? His glasses are just kind of there, I guess. Does he have a muzzle, actually? Now that I'm thinking about it. He's supposed to be... He's an animal, right? But I feel like his face is kind of just round. Right? I'm realizing I don't remember what Arthur looks like, even though he's such a popular character. And I watched so much of Arthur as a kid. Practically. Oh, they do float. Oh my goodness. Okay, so let's say this is Arthur. You know, he's, as usual, strutting across the street like he does. Let's say this is his... oh, I just realized I made Arthur way too tall. You know what? Whatever. This is grown up Arthur. He is now... He owns these streets, you know. Arthur owns this sidewalk. This is his road now. I don't know what Arthur looks like, I realized. Okay, let's say he's walking all across the street on the sidewalk. A secondary action that he could have is maybe he is maybe he's walking a dog. Let's say let's say the dog is on the side. There's a dog. It's a beautiful dog. The dog walking could be a secondary action. So what's the dog's name? Is it Buster? Is Buster the dog's name? Or was that a character? I feel like that's actually a character. Buster's not Arthur's dog. Dude, I haven't watched Arthur in so long. I mean, why would I watch Arthur now, I guess? But Buster's the... Oh, wait, Buster's the bunny. Yeah. Wait. Yeah, so, like, Arthur might be the first main action, because, you know, he's the main character, and he's the main person walking, but then the dog walking would be maybe the secondary one. You know, it's still important, but, you know, it's maybe something that doesn't need the most amount of, like, the main attention isn't there. The main spotlight is Arthur. So it doesn't mean that the secondary action is unimportant, but the main focus is Arthur. But the dog walking is also pretty good too. Oh wait, that's true. Oh my goodness. Wait, the characters are animals. And then he has a pet. Oh my goodness, you're blowing... that's crazy. And you know what? I never thought of that. That's crazy. Okay, so this is kind of like another type of secondary action. So secondary action is basically something that's happening that the character is doing on their own, but it's not the main important action that's happening. Okay, so now we're going to go into timing and motion. So we're going to go back to the good old cherry bomb ball. And let's see. Yes. Good old cherry bomb ball. So if, let's say, you want to make something move fast, then you will take up less frames. So for example, I'm animating in 24 frames a second, which means that once the timeline hits 24, 1 second will pass. So a lot of times for a ball movement, let's say if I want a ball to move from here to the other side of the screen, 1 second for a ball to move across the screen is quite a lot. You know what? I'm actually just going to use a shape because that is way easier. Let's see. Fill ground, no fill. And we'll use this one. Whoops. Put this over here. And then we're going to say duplicate it, put it 24. And then I'm going to move this over here. So let's see. Yeah. So let's say it takes 24 seconds. That's quite a lot. So let's see how it kind of pans out. And we'll just do the whole thing that we did before. I probably won't fill up every single frame, but just to kind of show roughly what it could look like. Just do this. Try to do it as quick as I can. Okay, so if I play this, the ball is moving quite slow. So you can see that it's covering the entire screen. It takes 1 second. It feels quite slow. So when you're animating a sequence, you want to keep in mind of how long something is going to take. If you want to make it fast, then maybe you might realize that most things don't actually move. It doesn't take like 1 second to move across the screen. If you want the ball to move really, really quickly across the screen, like maybe 12 or 7 frames would be good enough. So let's say I deleted all of these, remove frame, and I moved our last frame all the way to 12. And I'm gonna just do the same thing. I'm not gonna animate every single part, but I'm just gonna use just these 3 frames. So if I play it, you'll notice that it moves a lot faster compared to how it was beforehand, where I'm gonna just build out the in-betweens so it's easier to read. But you can see like a ball moving across the screen. Now, if I take half a second, it actually feels a lot better. It moves like it's not too bad. But let's say if another screen over there, I'm gonna make a ball somewhere here. Let's say instead now I have the ball move. It takes only 6 frames to move across the screen. That's quite fast. So let's see how that looks. I might not even need to animate every single frame. So you can see like in comparison, it starts moving really faster. So basically, all this is to show is that you want to think about how long something takes to move across the screen, or maybe if someone's waving, like how fast would that take, you know? But spacing is also a big part of it too. So you can see that we're covering a large amount of space. But let's do one more example. Let's say, for example, I want the ball to move across the screen, and let's say 6 frames again, but the ball only moves like, 6 frames again, and we were like, yeah, 6 frames was pretty quick. Hold up. I think I messed up. No! Where is this ball? Oh, did I draw it on? Oh, I did draw it on the line layer. No! Yeah, I'm just gonna redraw it again. Okay. So let's do this one more time. Let's say if we remember, the 6-frame one moved quite quickly across the screen. But let's say I do the exact same thing, but this time this ball barely moves. It's just moving like a few centimeters over to the right. And let's just turn this off. And again, let's just maybe duplicate this one and put it over here. Let's duplicate it, put it over here. So if I play this one, you can see it feels like it's moving really slow, even though it's 6 frames. So spacing, the further something is, the, you know, so the more time you have, the longer something will take. But you want to also take into consideration of spacing. So if, like, for example, the last ball, it's covering very little amount of space. So it'll still feel slow even though it takes 6 frames. Versus 6 frames moving across the entire screen is going to feel really fast. So when you're thinking about timing, you're going to want to think about how far something is moving and how fast you want something to move as well to get a good sense of the spacing and timing. So bigger distances, if it takes 1 second, it's going to feel like it's moving really slow. So for example, if you're flicking your finger from your waist all the way up to your head, like you're pointing your finger and you're kind of waving your hand upwards, if it takes 1 second, that's actually quite slow. Usually a motion like that will take, so a motion like this, something like this one will probably take, I don't know, 10 frames, 12 frames. But again, you'll just have to kind of try it out and see if it matches what you want. So how much distance something covers and how fast you make it is all in the timing and the motion of it. So that's a big important part of animating. So all these principles that we talked over, all of them kind of work in tandem with each other. They're all working together. They're all kind of a part of each other. So just because you learn one part and you master one part, you still want to kind of understand all the other principles and put them all together. Okay, so that was timing and motion. And oh my goodness, we have 15 minutes left. Okay, the last few ones are a little bit more on the drawing side of one big happy family. Yeah, exactly. They're all working together. Closer on the timeline, less frames. Yes, it won't be necessary, but it won't necessarily make it faster. Yeah, so you know, just because it takes more time doesn't mean it makes things faster, because it depends on the type of motion that you're trying to do. But usually, of course, if something takes 10 seconds, that's gonna kind of feel long, but it really is contextually. So for example, if someone's climbing up a mountain, you know, even though if they're moving really fast, but it takes them 1 minute to climb up the entire mountain versus a guy who climbs up an entire mountain, but it takes them like, I don't know, 10 seconds or 5 seconds, then it's going to feel like, oh, they're moving at two very different speeds kind of thing. So context, yes. As Joanne puts it, context makes a big deal into like how something will feel. So just because it's shorter on the timeline doesn't mean it makes it slower. Just because it's longer on the timeline also doesn't mean it makes it slower. It kind of just depends on the type of situation and context that you're animating. Okay, so where did I put this? Okay, so our next one is exaggeration. Okay, so this one, it's kind of similar to, it's a little bit of like squash and stretch. So you'll notice that how for the ball movement, it's not a simple, like let's say it's the cherry bomb one. I didn't just roll the ball backwards, like keep the same shape, but roll the ball back and then the antenna bends backwards. Like this could be one way, like if you want a really dense, solid ball, this is one way that you could do it. But at the what I did instead was exaggerate it. So instead of just having it be a ball rolling backwards, I'm like exaggerating the movement to really sell how much the ball is really leaning back. And I'm really, delaying and stretching how much this antenna is leaning back to, again, sell how much the ball is leaning back. So exaggeration is not only in the drawing style and the artistic technical abilities that you have, but it's also in how you want to sell the motion. So I guess maybe we won't do a ball, but let's say instead I have a person A over here. Let's say I want to have this person raise their arms in anger because they're angry. Am I setting myself up for kind of a challenging scenario? Maybe. But we'll draw person A and person B over here. And we'll have them both start off in a similar pose to one another. Now person A is just going to raise up their hands normally. They're going to lean back. The arms gonna, slowly come up. And maybe, actually, maybe they'll hunch over a little bit. There's a little bit of a delay in their movement. They're gonna bend over to get that momentum going. But person B is gonna be super exaggerated. They're gonna, start leaning forward. Maybe their hands are gonna be like this. So in terms of how they're starting, they're kind of similar. Maybe I'll have the pose be closer to something like this. And then the next one, person A is already going to start raising up their hands. So the head's going to move back. Hand is already like up here. I feel like this is more like the wave rather than like moving their hands up in anger. It's more of like, ooh, here's the wave. Like a sports game kind of thing. But person B is still gonna hunch over. They're really building up this momentum. So they're really gonna hunch over. Hand is really gonna sag forward. Now they're maybe hunching down even more. So exaggeration is not just in the art style, but it's also in how you can sell an emotion or an action. And then we'll go to the next one. And again, maybe person A is already, fully extended. Their hands are up in the air like they just don't care. And they're barely moving. The motion is very stiff. But now person B is gonna start moving back, Or maybe I'm kind of actually like, you know what? They're gonna hunch over just a little bit more, but now their hands are slowly coming up. Again, hunching down just a smidge more, holding that pose. And then person A is already going to hold it. So he's waiting for person B. And now person B is slowly moving up. And maybe the hands are going to be delayed a little bit. Now, exaggeration doesn't always, motion doesn't always have to be super exaggerated. It can sometimes just be how to display different types of personality traits. And this person's gonna whip their head back really quickly, and now their hand is like way over here, and the motion is way exaggerated. They're kind of like that tubular, wavy, wacky tube guy from, you know, those car dealerships kind of thing. Woo! You know, and then leaning back even more, and now their arm is like maybe way over here. They're kind of doing a little bit of like the Matrix bullet dodge. So it's kind of goofy looking. Let's see how this plays out. Woo! Okay, so maybe I'm kind of having fun with this one. We'll just like finish it off a little bit on this one. Yeah. Now well, maybe not finish it because I'm realizing we only have a few more minutes left. But so this one is like the same type of motion. It's the same type of animation, but they're both doing it very differently. It's like one's like whoa, and then the other one's like whoa. You know, it's like one's like whoa, and the other one's like whoa. So, you know, it's like two very different types of people in how they do it. One is a bit more like straightforward and standard, and the other one's a lot more into it, kind of. Yeah. Inflatable two-man. Yeah, that's what they call it. Yeah. They got moves. Yeah, they do. Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, we are going through a lot. For sure. But that's exaggeration. So exaggeration is also in like the art style. So that's why usually with like cartooning, we have a lot of characters who are drawn, and this was like a character that I was doing in character design camp, where like this person was this like evil character. You know, they got like big poofy hair and everything. They actually kind of look like a sunflower kind of character, but it's very cartoony and very stylized. But kind of the thing with animation is that the more exaggerated you are, the more you have to play, that you're allowed to play around with for the animation and the motion of the character, how they move, how they position themselves, like all those kind of things. If you exaggerate the style, it allows for you to play around with and have a little bit more leniency and wiggle room with how exaggerated those motions can be. So animation is not just in the style, but it's also exaggeration in the animation itself. Okay, and then solid drawing. This one is pretty straightforward. This one is making sure that you are good at drawing. And a big part of animation is going to actually be in the dimensions. So knowing how you can track the three-dimensional forms of an object is going to be pretty important. So like knowing how to turn something three-dimensionally, knowing how to draw a prism in the moment on the spot is also pretty helpful, because then you can then track the motion a lot more easily. You can know how to turn a character, you know, let's say if a person is standing here, I know we might go over time just like a little bit, but if you're going to be drawing a person, knowing how they're standing and knowing how they're rotating on a plane is going to be super important, because then if a person is running towards the camera, or if they're turning, or they're jumping over somewhere, then understanding the structure that lies underneath is going to be really useful, but also knowing the structure of a human person is going to be really important. So that's why in the drawing over here, I had the Loomis head kind of broken down here, or the mannequin head. This way you understand how a person is turning their head when they're looking across the screen. You understand how the head is moving when you need to make the person do a head turn, all that kind of stuff. All these things require good and structured drawing. So actually, I would highly recommend that if you are animating, to learn perspective. Perspective is super important for just good drawing in general, whether you're animating or figure drawing or character designing. Perspective is super important. Learn how to freehand a prism. Quick notes on perspective. Basically, just make sure your lines are always converging with one another. That's kind of the biggest rule when it comes to perspective. And then if you're freehanding and you're not sure whether your prisms are moving properly or converging properly, kind of just draw it and rotate your screen. Kind of be like, oh, does it work like this? It feels a little off, so maybe I should fix it. You know, and then rotate it another angle, be like, how does it look over here? Maybe this one's converging too much. And then rotate it again and be like, you know what? This line over here, it's not straight enough, it's not meeting in the proper angles. And you just keep rotating it, and then you get a good prism. Yeah. So freehanding prisms is one exercise I would highly recommend if you are drawing, practicing perspective and you really want to get good at it. The next one would be to learn how to map something on a three-dimensional plane and make it look as if every object is sitting properly on the same ground. So I guess just to cheat a little bit, I'll just draw the same prism on the plane that I already drew, like this grid. So being able to draw something on the same plane is also super important. This is maybe more useful for things like layout or storyboarding, as you'll need to make sure characters are running on the same plane. So that's solid drawing. And appeal is probably the most straightforward one. Make sure your drawings look nice. You know, if your drawings look good and if they look appealing and the drawing has a unique style that people love, then people are just gonna naturally gravitate towards it. So appeal is a little bit more personable. You know, style is in the end, it's kind of subjective, but if your drawings look good, then people are gonna look at it and be like, wow, that looks so good, kind of thing. So yeah, that's pretty much the end of our stream. This one was a hefty one. We ran through a lot of technicalities when it comes to animation. But thank you everyone for joining us. If you liked our stream, definitely, you know, give us a like. And if you haven't subscribed, definitely subscribe to our channel, because we do a lot of streams like this. Maybe not streams like this. We definitely do a lot of different things. We do a lot of character designs. Sometimes we go over some animation principles, and sometimes we do roasts and critiques, and sometimes we do fun collabs where we draw your own characters. So if you don't want to miss any of those, definitely check out our YouTube channel and subscribe. That way you don't miss out on any of our special streams coming up. And one way, of course, to make sure you're up to date as to special streams like our roasts and drawing your own characters is to make sure you are checked in with our social media. So we post a lot of our channel updates, and we kind of post heads up for upcoming streams on our Discord and on our social medias. So definitely check in with our social medias if you haven't, because that's kind of one of the best ways to stay up to date with what's going to happen with our streams. And And of course, we're not just a YouTube channel. We also teach a lot of classes. There's still some time for summer, so next week I'm still running the character design camp. And if that sounds interesting to you, there's still spots open. And yeah, run through a lot of character proportions and kind of the basics of what needs to go into character design. So if any of that sounds good to you, definitely check out our summer camp, because there's still a little bit of summer still happening. But that's kind of it. That's kind of it for me when it comes to animation and our 12 principles. I know that this one was a hefty one to run into, but I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope some of you were able to learn some stuff, and maybe it made you interested in checking out animation and giving it a shot. But yeah, thank you for joining us. I know I wasn't able to keep track of chat too much, but thanks for joining me and, you know, keeping me company as I'm streaming. And I will maybe see you guys in the near future for our next stream. Yeah, and thank you again, Joanne and Kevin, for modding and keeping chat company. But yeah, have a good weekend, guys, and hopefully enjoy the rest of your summer. I always keep waving to the camera, but I forget that the camera's not on. But yes, bye-bye. Have a good weekend. Bye-bye, everyone. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.